Thank you for accessing this training presentation. My name's Lisa Berry. I'm Chair of the UKCRF Network Study Intensity Group, and this session is an introduction to version 14 of the Study Intensity tool. It's suitable for new users of the tool, but also for those of you who are experienced with the version 13, but would like a more detailed overview of the changes we've introduced with version 14 of the tool. This presentation will give an overview of the Study Intensity tool, or the SIT. We'll be looking at pages 1 to 5, the administrative page, the summary page, and how this can be used to enhance workforce planning. We'll look at the support available to you and how you can access further resources which are available on the UKCRF network portal if you click on the Study Intensity page, and the link is on the screen below. The Study Intensity tool, or SIT, is designed to support clinical research teams in workforce planning by calculating study workload and intensities and how complex the studies are using whole time equivalents and other measures. It originated in the USA in 2006 and shortly afterwards came to the UK, where we amended it and modified it, and our UK versions are now in use at research sites within the USA. Version 14 is an easy-to-use Excel workbook. It has enhanced usability with updated procedures aligned with national guidelines. Now, this version merges adult and pediatric functionality. Previously, these were separate tools. And it measures the activity of nursing, lab, imaging, and up to 4 MDT staff groups in addition to administrative staff. It measures intensity and complexity of study visits and for the trial as a whole, and it consists of 8 pages. Pages 1 to 5 are where we document the clinical study activity. We've got the admin page, and on here we can calculate the admin requirements from nursing admin and up to 3 different administrative MDT staff groups. There's a summary page which pulls all of those calculations together. And then there's a support page which details how you can access further support and training. There are multiple benefits of using the SIT. It will aid prospective planning during study setup. It will assist you in defining what groups of workers are going to be active on the study, and it assists with feasibility, capacity assessments, and logistical planning of how you're going to deliver the study at your site. It can be used to calculate the staffing requirements for a single trial, or you can look at the outputs, the calculations for a portfolio of studies to assist with your workforce planning. But it can also assist in the costing of trials and any grant applications or grant bids. The SIT calculates staffing resources, complexity, and staff costs to deliver the study using whole time equivalents, WTEs. So the whole time equivalent is based on an Agenda for Change full-time contract. When using the tool, ensure you know what the full-time hours are for the staff groups you're entering into the spreadsheet. So for example, university employed staff might have a slightly different contract. The complexity is calculated on a study intensity score of between 1 and 6. A score of 1 is low and a score of 6 is high. And the cost function will calculate the staff costs to deliver the study, and you can add up other one-off costs into the template. It doesn't replace the national costing tool, but it is a useful adjunct to it. I will give more detail on the whole time equivalent and intensity calculations later on in the presentation. Those of you familiar with version 13 will see that the tool looks different in colour and in layout. The colours are easier on the eye, and there is a consistent colour scheme used to help identify key sections such as costing, whole time equivalent, intensity, or study specific activities. The very dark, almost black, very dark grey, almost black cells now block out those cells that have no function, which makes the spreadsheet easier to navigate, especially for the new users. And you can see that colour key there on the right-hand side. Version 14 now merges the adult and pediatric version into one tool, whereas previously these were separate. The user can switch between adult and pediatric version by selecting pediatric or adult from the drop-down boxes in pages 1 to 5. Now, the only difference between these two specialties is that the agreed procedure timings differ slightly for some activities, such as measuring vital signs or receiving consent. And this is because these activities will take longer in a pediatric than in an adult participant. To switch between adult or pediatric, you find cell E50, and you can see this in that red circle on the screen. And on the drop-down box, select the right version of the tool that you want. If you select pediatric, then those timings will change to pediatric, and the same with if you select the adults from the drop-down box. What we recommend is that you double check on pages 1 to 5 that you have got the correct specialty selected in that drop-down box. Our advice to you is to start using the SIT as soon as you've completed your training. It's also helpful for you to see if there are any trainers or super users within your area. It might seem overwhelming at first, but with practice, it can be completed quite quickly. Now, you will need an electronic device with Excel installed. It is an Excel program, and we recommend accessing a new blank SIT template from the portal to ensure you've got a clean version to use. The exception to this would be if you were reviewing a SIT tool that you'd completed maybe at feasibility for a study. The study was now up and running, or there'd been an amendment and you wanted to go in and revise the tool or check it for accuracy. You will need access to the protocol. However, there may be times where you're doing grant costings, for instance, where you might just have a synopsis, or you might just be chatting with the PI about the study. You might just have a schedule of events. It won't be completely accurate at that stage because you don't have all of the information to hand, but it will give you an indication of what that study requires to be delivered. Now, the tool does require a recruitment target and a study duration to calculate. And it's also really helpful if you have an awareness of who and how your participants are going to be approached to take part. Recruitment is often a hidden activity. It's not captured within the schedule of events anywhere. It's often not costed for on costing templates. But the SIT has a section specifically related to recruitment. And it's asking you to think about who, how, and where when you're going to be recruiting your participants. So we recommend that you include within that recruitment section all activities that that are needed to get the patient to the point of attending a formal screening visit. So there are some key information cells, and this is similar cells to version 13. So we'll go through this in the demonstration that you'll be able to access from the portal. Some of these cells, and this is at the very top section of the tool. The study title, this is for information only. If you enter on the white cells on cell D5 on page 1, that will pull through to all of the other pages for you, so you don't have to worry which protocol or which study you're working on. And then the page title, this is in cell D6, again for information only, but it's page specific. If you enter the data here on page 1, it will not pull through to the other pages. And this is because you may want to have recruitment activity on page 1, treatment on page 2, follow-up on page 3, or you may be using different pages for different cohorts and you want to label those correctly so you know again which cohort or activity you're looking at on a specific page. Cell D9, this is your trial number, this is your internal identifier for the study. It's information, but it will pull through to pages 1 to 5 and the admin page. Now we've got the PI name here. Again, it's information, but it will pull through to the page 1 to 5 and the admin page. Now we've got the study duration. Now this is mandatory. It has to be entered for the SIT tool to calculate properly. And you enter this in years and months. On the summary page, you add the overall duration of the study. And on pages 1 to 5 and on the admin pages, you put the duration for that specific page worths of activity. The start date, which is in cell D13, again, is just for information. It won't stop the tool from calculating properly. And then mandatory, and we'll see this on one of the slides we've got coming up, row 42 and 43, you do need to stipulate how many patients you are going to be recruiting and how many visits they're going to be happening. It won't calculate properly without that. And now we move on to the recruitment section. This section here should include all of the activities required to identify patients and invite them to their screening visit. This would include activities that your team are doing, such as pre-screening. So as you can see on the screen, this is in rows 16 to 23. It's the same layout across pages 1 to 5. This is just a demo, just an example on the screen that you can see. It's not from a real study. In here, we've got a nurse who's going to be in clinic for 3/4 of an hour a week for 26 weeks. So it's a 6-month recruitment period. So it's 26 weeks of 1 year. And then we've also got about 15 minutes a week of CTA support just to make sure there's enough patient information sheets printed, and maybe they'll be sending a patient information sheet out. So we've got that activity captured, you can see on the white cells on the left-hand side of the screen. And then there's just some recruitment comments on the right. When you're looking at your recruitment activities, please think about if you're going to be in clinic every Monday, actually are those clinics happening on bank holidays? And also the tool will calculate for you your whole time equivalent and those staff costs as well, so you can see exactly how much it is going to cost you maybe to have that nurse in clinic. We then move on to the staff setup and educational activity. Now in version 13, these were under the different MDT sections. Now we've moved them all together. And you'll see here we've got nursing on the example on the screen, nursing in column 1. If you enter the MDT or staff group titles on page 1 into the relevant sections, it will pre-populate across onto all of the other relevant light aqua cells across all of the pages. What you would want to be including in here is maybe thinking about your attendance at SIV. Are there any study setup meetings? Maybe do you need to have worksheets developed that the nursing team are doing? Each of these sections do have guidance columns, guidance comments, and there is an example of that on the screen now. If you hover over those red triangles, it will give you prompts or get you to think about what you might want to include here. If you've included all of the protocol development or study setup time on page 1 for each of the staff groups, you don't necessarily need to include that on every other page, because if you do that, you might be double counting, and if you include it on 5 pages, then that could be 5 times the actual amount of activity that you need to include. And what we recommend as well is that if you're putting specific time for study setup or staff education on the admin page, you then double check that you've not included that same time for that same staff group on pages 1 to 5, because again, you'll end up with an inaccurate calculation. Underneath that section is the costing key, and again we've got it in one section for you, nicely aligned, so you can you make sure you're not missing anything. It's all in one place. These are on rows 30 to 32, on pages 1 to 5, on rows 15 to 16 on the admin page. And then you enter in the cost per hour for each staff group. And then what you should think about and confirm with your R&D department, if you are using this for costings, is are you putting down the commercial costs? Are you putting down your locally agreed commercial costs, non-commercial costs, or are you putting down what it costs to the department as an employer to employ that person. And if you're doing that, remember that it costs more to employ somebody than they actually get within their hourly salary, because we've got national insurance contributions, pensions, apprenticeship levies and things to add. Your R&D department, your finance department within R&D can give you what those costs are. We've also got recruitment and additional costings here, which is underneath the cost key. And this will show you how much the recruitment costs, how much those education and additional activities that aren't protocol driven are going to cost for your MDT teams across pages 1 to 5. These calculations will pull through to that summary page. We then move on to the study information. Now, this is our patient target and the study visits. Now, this information, the number of subjects and the total number of visits, is essential. As I said earlier, the tool won't calculate properly without knowing how many patients and how many visits we're going to be doing those activities for. You'll find this section on rows 41 to 47 across pages 1 to 5. We've got 5 visit types on each of the 5 pages, which enables you to have 25 different individual visit types. But what we recommend is that you use the study flowchart or the schedule of events to identify where similar visits are happening and then cluster them together. And in the example you see on the screen, we've got one screening visit, and you can see here in the number of subjects we're expecting to screen 40 patients to get 30, and the comment within that column is that we expect about 10 screen fails for this particular study. Our visit type 2 in this example is a first dose treatment visit, and then our visit type 3, looking at our fictitious schedule of events, we can see that there are 11 dosing visits that are all very similar, if not identical, in what we're going to be doing to those patients. And so rather than using 11 different columns, we can actually cluster all of those 11 visits into one column, and you'll be able to see that on the demonstration that you can access on the portal. Now there are the visit type descriptors. This is a drop-down box, so it will say whether it's a study visit, a telephone call, blood visit, or outreach. You've then got your visit type name, so you can write down and match it to your protocol what that visit is called. You've then got space underneath that to write any additional comments that you may need. And then underneath at the very bottom row on the example on the screen, it says visit number for schedulers. And this is used specifically for CRFManager, and if you're doing an upload directly of version 14 onto CRFManager. And again, you can see in bold at the bottom of the text on the screen, it's reminding you to think about actually, are you going to be screening more patients than you actually end up enrolling? And also think about if you've got a patient that drops out of the study, do you then need to go in and replace them? We then move on to study visit activities, and this is the same across pages 1 to 5 for all of the MDT sections. Now, the bulk of the study activity is labelled nursing. That's because originally it was a nurse-led tool, and the workforce was predominantly for research delivery nursing. However, you could use this nursing section for whatever your biggest workforce is. It's entirely down to you. It's just pre-labelled nursing. And this is encompassed between rows 52 to 97. The grey cells are protected, which means we can't overwrite them. You can't change the timing within a grey cell, but you can change the frequency. You can either decimalize it and make it smaller, or you can increase the frequency of that block of time. So in this example, we've got informed consent of 20 minutes. We're having that done once on one visit. But actually, if the consent process is going to take 40 minutes, you just say you're going to do it The number per visit would be 2, so you're doing 2 blocks of 20 minutes on one visit. And then if you look in that grey column next to it where it says the study time in minutes per visit, that would then change to 40. So you can sense check and make sure that your timings are accurate. The red triangles will give you some guidance onto what activities to consider including within that cell. And although there are suggested timings, it's absolutely down to you as the user to use your knowledge and research experience. You'll know how long these activities take for that protocol and for that patient group, and also how you're going to deliver that study at your site. Now, the MDT sections are exactly the same for all of the different MDT sections across all of the 5 pages. We've got 4 different MDT sections. You may want to include like a CTA, you may want to include unblinded nurses, it could be a fellow, it could be a physiotherapist. It's absolutely down to you and what staff you need to deliver that study at your site. So the layout is the same as the nursing. In the procedure column, you list what activities are going to be undertaken. You then list how many minutes that procedure or activity is going to take. You would then say in visit type 1, how many times you're going to do it on a visit and on how many visits that's going to happen. And hopefully that will become clear when you see the demonstration video that we've got. And you just work your way along those 5 visit columns. In here at the top where it says MDT4, there is a grey box which says MA. On page 1, if you enter the title of the role there, say for example that's going to be our clinical trial assistant, if you enter that into that cell on page 1, it will pull right the way through across to every other page for you. At the bottom of each of the different staff sections on pages 1 to 5, you will see we've got the blue, coral and yellow section here. Now this is giving us our staff totals for that specific group of staff. This is going to tell us what that staff time is in minutes of hours to complete that visit type, both for an individual patient and for all of the patients included on that page. It's going to tell you what the cost of those activities are, including our out of hours costs. It's also going to tell you what the whole time equivalent and the whole time equivalent per annum is. It will remind you of what the study duration is, and it will tell you what the intensity score is for those particular, the specific visit types within that page. So the previous slide looked at the staff specific calculations. And this slide here will show you what the page specific calculations are. So on each of those pages 1 to 5, it will pull together for you all of the activity and the costs and the intensities for all of those different staff groups and give you a page summary. These are in rows 297 to pages 308, and you can see here similar layout to the staff specific sections. It's the same outputs that you get, but it's summarizing it together. And then what you'll also get on the summary page is a total for all of the pages together. So the summary page will have a bigger output encompassing everything. You don't need to do any manual calculations. The summary page will pull that all through for you. Now we move on to the admin page. So it's similar to pages 1 to 5 in that we're listing which staff member is going to be doing what administrative task. We're going to be looking at the suggested procedures and the suggested timings. Remember, the timings for admin are going to change depending on the type of study it is. Is it phase 1? Is it an ATIMP study? Is it a commercial or non-commercial study? How many participants you've got? How vigorous is your sponsor in terms of wanting to come and monitor you? So you'd use your insight into that study to input the data onto this page. And you're going to be saying how many times that staff member or staff group will be doing that activity at study setup, once the study is open and running, and then what activities are done to archive and close that study out. The admin procedures and timings have been reviewed with help from some of our national project manager colleagues, and the same activities are listed in the nursing admin and in the other 3 administrative staff sections. Again, that's just enabling consistency there, making sure we're not missing anything for any of the staff groups. We've included the nursing administrative section so that you can identify how much admin tasks your nursing or your clinical staff are doing. So you can see, do you really want them to be doing that? Do you want to be able to put a business case together potentially to increase your administrative R&D support and then free up your clinical staff to do that patient-facing activity? What we recommend is that if you're adding an activity on the administration page, that you're not then repeating that information on pages 1 to 5, because otherwise we're double counting. Now on your summary page, all of that information that we've talked about, all of that data is going to be pulled through. At the top of the summary page, you're now going to get this beautiful workforce planning table, and this is going to list for you all of the different staff groups that you've included on the tool, and it will tell you what their whole-time equivalent and whole-time equivalent per annum is across all of the different pages 1 to 5, across the admin page, and then also what the requirements are to deliver that study in its entirety for you at site. It enables you to easily identify where those peak periods are. So if you are using one page for recruitment, another page for treatment, and another page for follow-up, you'll be able to see which of those activities is more intensive. Now we know through experience that usually when you're recruiting and you're treating a patient, that's far more labour intensive than when your patients drop down onto a longer term follow-up. You need less staff for long-term follow-up, so you can see where those peak periods are going to be. It could be that you use a different page for different cohorts or different arms of the study. One may be randomised to standard of care, one may be randomised to come in and have weekly infusions for a year. What you'll be able to see by using the tool in this way is which cohort is most labour intensive for you, and potentially also what those cost differences are. Going to focus now on whole-time equivalent and whole-time equivalent per annum. Some of you will be very familiar with this, some of you may be new to it. So WTE is the whole-time equivalent, and WTEA is your whole-time equivalent per annum, and this is where the hours are annualised. Now it's based on a staff member working 1,560 hours per annum. Now, this is based on someone on an Agenda for Change contract who's had continuous NHS service for 10 years plus. So it will allow for 8 weeks annual leave. It includes an average NHS sickness percentage, which can sometimes be as high as 4.5%, but it also includes time for other types of leave. Maybe dependence leave, maybe compassionate leave, but also study training as well. So essentially there's a 75-hour buffer above that 8 weeks annual leave for sickness, training and other types of leave. So it's very generous. So you don't need to worry about, do I need to cover staff sickness? That's built into the tool for you. And it calculates the staff that you need both for the study in its entirety, the whole-time equivalent, and looking at that 1,560 hours per annum. And just to break that down for you, so one whole-time equivalent is me working full-time, 37.5 hours a week, with that additional time included for annual leave, sickness, training. And if I'm working a standard day 8 till 4, that's 0.2 whole-time equivalent. That's one 7.5 hour shift per week. We thought it would be helpful just to give a simple example of how the whole time equivalent and the whole time equivalent per annum can look different depending on the duration of the study. In this example, we have a study that requires one whole time equivalent, so 1,560 hours of staff time. Now, if the study is going to run for a year from start to finish, your whole time equivalent will be 1 and your whole time equivalent per annum will be 1 because the duration is the same. If, however, we were to extend the study duration for 2 years to say, right, we're doing exactly the same amount of patients, exactly the same activity, but we are doubling the amount of time we've got to deliver that, our whole time equivalent will still remain as 1,560 hours, but we're spreading out that one whole time equivalent over 2 years. So our whole time equivalent per annum in this instance would be 0.5. Now, if the sponsor had come to us to say, right, same amount of patients, same activities, but we need to get everything done within 6 months, we still require one whole time equivalent of staffing, so 1,560 hours to deliver the study. But what we're doing now is condensing those annualized hours into a 6-month period. So in this instance, our whole time equivalent per annum is going to be 2. So overall, the amount of staff hours we need is exactly the same. We're just condensing it into a shorter period. So as a rule of thumb, if your study duration is a year, your whole time equivalent and your whole time equivalent per annum will be the same. If your study duration is longer than a year, then your per annum figure will be less than the whole time equivalent because we're spreading out that staff time. And then if it's shorter than 12 months, shorter than a year, our whole time equivalent per annum is going to be higher than our whole time equivalent because we are condensing and squeezing that staff time into a shorter period. So the SIT tool is going to calculate intensity for each individual visit, for each page, but what you'll also get is an average intensity for the entire study. And the intensity has been requested on the NIHR annual metric reports. And what sites tend to do is we're required to submit the average intensity on those metric reports. You'll be able to find that for the entire study on the summary page, and the table that you can see on the screen just explains how we calculate the complexity or intensity, how that's based on the duration of the visits. This is calculated on the information on pages 1 to 5, not the administrative tasks. So the SIPT can help you identify more intensive periods within an individual study. So as I said earlier, we know that recruitment and treatment visits tend to take far more time to deliver than when those patients transfer over onto longer term follow-up. Some study arms can be more intensive than others, and the SIT tool will absolutely help you. If you use the different pages, it will help you identify where those peak periods are, or maybe where you're going to have some flux within your staffing. It's absolutely brilliant for individual studies, but different sites use the SIT tools to do their workforce planning by looking at what those whole time equivalents are, their whole time equivalents per annum are for a portfolio of studies, and then comparing that against their available staffing. That can be done through using Gantt charts. It can be used by doing dashboards. Different sites use it differently, and it will really help with assessing capacity within your team. But please remember that that whole time equivalent and the whole time equivalent per annum calculation and the cost calculation that you get actually is based on the site recruiting 100% of the target and all of those activities that are entered onto that SIT tool. Some sites upload their completed study intensities directly into CRFManager to help with visit scheduling. Version 14 has been released prior to the pending upgrade of CRFManager. At the time of our launch, it's not yet possible to upload a completed version 14 sit directly into CRFManager. And so we recommend that if you are required to do this at your site, you continue to use version 13 until the upgrade has been completed. You will be informed of when that work is complete and when version 14 can be uploaded, and updates will be accessible for you on the NIHR UK CRF network portal. And at the bottom of the slide below, it will show exactly what cells specifically relate to CRFManager Upload. To reassure our users, each new version of the SIT has undergone rigorous testing before the formula is locked and the version is released for use. We'd like to thank all of our pilot sites who were involved in testing the draft versions and giving their feedback. It was hugely valuable. The tool is updated in response to feedback from our users, which can be done through emails through to us, informal chats with any of the work group, through taking part in the Q&A demonstration sessions that are happening. And the tool has to be fit for purpose, so your feedback is really important to us. Not only will it inform any future versions of the tool, but it also helps us inform our training package and support resources that are available to you. So please do keep your feedback and comments coming in. So just a quick recap on the recommendations we've touched on so far. We recommend that you use a new SIT template to complete your calculations, that clinical delivery staff complete the clinical timings because they're the ones that have the insight into that patient population and how long these activities actually take. What's in a commercial costing, for example, might not always be completely accurate. So definitely be guided by your clinical team. If you've got multiple teams delivering one study at your site, you really should only need to do one tool. Different teams can contribute to completing the SIT calculation. We recommend that you review your SIT calculation once your study is active so that you can go in and assess how accurate your predictions were for how long things take. We also recommend that you go in and review your calculation when your recruitment has ended. You may have under or over recruited, or when there's been an amendment to either the study timeline or for when there's been an amendment which changes what we do within the study. Are they introducing more blood tests? Are there changes to study visits? We recommend you keep all of your previous completed versions for a study so that you then got an audit trail and can show how and why any calculations may have changed. Page 8 of the tool is our support page. Here it will signpost you to the portal where you can download a copy of the tool and access additional training resources. We will be hosting a monthly live Q&A and demonstration sessions. These are scheduled a year in advance. You don't need to register for them. The dates are on the portal. Go in, have a look at the website, and then you can just dial into those meetings that are happening. They will be recorded for training purposes. We'll be developing some bite-sized videos. These will be in response to the queries that come through to us as a group. We've developed frequently asked questions document for version 14, along with a document which summarises all of the changes that we've discussed today and highlights the difference between version 13 and version 14. We also have a generic email for queries and questions, so please do use that. You can see the address on the screen. I'd just like to end this presentation by saying thank you to my colleagues within the study intensity group, and also to the UKCRF Network's ops team, in particular Sophie Black, who's been absolutely essential in developing this version of the tool and sorting the formulas out. And we'd like to say a special thanks to all of our version 14 pilot sites who were crucial in doing the testing for us and giving feedback on all of the various drafts of version 14. Please do get in contact with us via the email address if you've got queries. Keep an eye on the webpage because there'll be updates coming through frequently, and we hope you find the new version of the tool really useful for you at your site.